In this chapter, the book relates one of my favorite stories. And this is about Rodan, the spearmaker. And the chapter is called The Gold Lender of Babylon. And it starts out with the excitement. You can tell Rodan's very excited. 50 pieces of gold. He had received, never before had he ever had so much gold in his leather wallet. He could hardly realize the good fortune, what power in those clinking discs, right? What could he do with it? What could he make? How can he make it his? Went over to his sister's house. A couple days later, he goes and he visits Mathan, the lender of gold. And I really like what Mathan says. So Rodan goes in and says, hey, you've got some misfortune. Do I need to help you out? Need to lend gold? Kind of chuckling. And Rodan, he says, no, not such as that. I seek no gold. Instead, I crave thy wise wisdom, advice. Rodan's response is, can this be so? Rodan the spearmaker doth display more cunning than all the rest. For he comes to Mathan not for gold, but for advice. Many men come to me for gold to pay for their follies, but for his advice they want it not. Yet who is more able to advise than the lender of gold, to whom many men come in trouble? He was so excited, he says, come on, pull up a rug. We're going to eat together. I'm going to have a feast. You're going to drink whatever you want. He was so excited because, think of it, everybody goes to the bank for money, but nobody goes to the bank to ask why they need help. So the story goes on and talks about why Rodan was so troubled, and what it was is he went to his sister's house. His sister was so excited, she wanted him to share his money with her husband. Her husband that wanted him to become successful, right? And how many times does that happen? When you have money, there's a lot of people out there it's easy to say no to, right? Hey, can I do this? No, it's okay. But what do you do when it's your sister, or your mom, or your dad, or your cousin, or your close friend, right? So he goes on, and Mathan says, my friend, 'tis a worthy subject thou bringest to discuss. Gold bringeth unto its possessor responsibility, and a changed position with his fellow men. It bringeth fear lest he lose it, or to be tricked away from him. It bringeth a feeling of power and ability to do good. Likewise, it bringeth opportunities whereby his very good intentions may bring him into difficulties. And he goes on and he says, have you ever heard the story about the farmer who understood animals? Okay, so this farmer could understand when the animals talked. So the farmer's going along, and to paraphrase the story, and you'll read it in the book, the farmer overhears the donkey talking to the ox. And essentially the ox says, I'm tired. I'm so tired of pulling the plow. And the farmer overhears the donkey say, well, you know what? Tomorrow pretend you're sick, and then you'll have a day off. Well, the next morning, the farmer, he wasn't going to be tricked. The ox pretended he was sick, and so he hooked up the yoke onto the donkey. The donkey did the work of the ox all day long. And that very night, he went back sore and weary, a little sad. And what ended up happening is the ox said, I'm so sorry, right? And the donkey says, you should be, and don't be sick tomorrow, because I overheard the farmer say that if you're sick tomorrow, he's going to kill you. So the moral of that story is, if you desire to help your friend, do so in a way that will not bring thy friend's burdens upon thyself. He then goes through, and Mathan talks about, he has this wooden box, and he opens it up. And it's kind of interesting because he lovingly looks at certain tokens and others. And the tokens were collateral, pieces of items that were given to him to promise him that they would get their money back. And he talks about, you know what, I have, this gold bangle, right, with all these jewels. And he says, oh, this is great. And the gold lender says, no, I'm actually pretty frustrated. The mom put this up as collateral because she wanted her son to be a very famous merchant. And Mathan didn't want to lend the money, but then the mom yelled at him, and so he says, listen, she gave me collateral, I had to lend the money. He says, I'll probably never get it back. And then there was just a piece of rope with a knot tied in it. This guy was honorable and trustworthy. When he needed money to buy more camels, he'd bring that in, take the money, and he always promptly paid it back, which is extremely important. If you pay it back promptly, people are eager to give you more. Mathan says he doesn't discourage borrowing gold, he encourages it, if it be for a wise purpose. So what he gives the advice to Rodin is, he asks him, he says, let me flip it over here. He says, how many years hast thou labored as a spearmaker? 3 years. How much besides the king's gift hast thou saved? 3 gold pieces. So each year thou hast labored, thou hast denied thyself good things to save from thine earnings 1 piece of gold. Yes. Then Midas saved in 50 years of labor 50 pieces of gold by the self-denial. It would be a lifetime of labor. So to get 50 pieces of gold, he's able to save 1 a year. Simple math. 50 years he'd have to work to do that. He says, thinkest thou thy sister would wish to jeopardize the savings of 50 years of labor over the bronze melting pot that her husband might experiment on being a merchant? Rodin goes, well, not if I say what you told me, right? That would make sense. So the advice he says is go back to your sister, have her husband come up with a business plan, bring it back to me, and if it's wise, we'll do it. If it's not wise, we won't. Inside that token box was a saying that says, better a little caution than a great regret. It's like we've talked about, right, with Ronald Reagan. Trust but verify. Okay? Better a little caution, think it through, worry it, pray about it, talk to wise people about it. Okay? If you're going to invest in something, talk to people who understand that and get their advice if they think it's good for you to do. Better a little caution than a great regret.